She was just walking, but got chased by 20 greetings. It was supposed to be a regular walk. A young woman in Cardiff, dressed casually, blending in with the crowd, simply walking down the street. But in less than 2 hours, she was approached by 20 different men. Some said hello, some asked if she played tennis, others tried to walk alongside her. None of them screamed, none of them touched her. And yet, her body language told a different story. Security cameras captured every interaction, her eyes scanning for exits, her shoulders tightening, her pace quickening after each conversation. And still, every man thought he was just being friendly. This was not a one-time event. This is the daily experience of millions of women, a constant stream of attention they never asked for. The type of attention that doesn't flatter, it drains. That doesn't charm, it pressures. From a male perspective, it might seem harmless, a quick hello, a compliment, maybe even a genuine attempt to start a conversation. But from her perspective, it's a pattern she knows too well. It's not the first guy that scares her. It's the 15th. The one that doesn't take no for an answer. The one who walks too close. The one who waits around after she says she's not interested. To a man, this may look like coincidence, but to a woman, it's a daily calculation of risk. You might think this is exaggerated. You might even say she should be flattered. But let me ask you this. If 20 strangers approached you in 2 hours, in public, uninvited, and all of them were stronger than you, would you still feel safe? The question is not whether you meant harm. The question is, why don't you see that she feels harmed? This isn't about villainizing men. It's about waking up to a reality most have the privilege to ignore. So the real question becomes this. Why don't men realize they are the ones making women feel unsafe? She was just walking, but got chased by 20 greetings. It was supposed to be a regular walk, a young woman in Cardiff, dressed casually, blending in with the crowd, simply walking down the street. But in less than 2 hours, she was approached by 20 different men. Some said hello, some asked if she played tennis, others tried to walk alongside her. None of them screamed, none of them touched her. And yet, her body language told a different story. Security cameras captured every interaction, her eyes scanning for exits, her shoulders tightening, her pace quickening after each conversation. And still, every man thought he was just being friendly. This was not a one-time event. This is the daily experience of millions of women, a constant stream of attention they never asked for. The type of attention that doesn't flatter, it drains. That doesn't charm, it pressures. From a male perspective, it might seem harmless. A quick hello, a compliment, maybe even a genuine attempt to start a conversation. But from her perspective, it's a pattern she knows too well. It's not the first guy that scares her, it's the 15th. The one that doesn't take no for an answer. The one who walks too close. The one who waits around after she says she's not interested. To a man, this may look like coincidence. But to a woman, it's a daily calculation of risk. You might think this is exaggerated. You might even say she should be flattered. But let me ask you this. If 20 strangers approached you in 2 hours, in public, uninvited, and all of them were stronger than you, would you still feel safe? The question is not whether you meant harm. The question is, why don't you see that she feels harmed? This isn't about villainizing men. It's about waking up to a reality most have the privilege to ignore. So the real question becomes this. Why don't men realize they are the ones making women feel unsafe? Men don't realize they're making women afraid. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men don't realize that what they believe is a friendly gesture, a harmless comment, or a confident approach is often perceived by women as a threat. There is a massive gap in perception. A man might think, "I just smiled at her. I just said hello. I was polite. I was charming." But what he fails to see is how that same action can land completely differently on the receiving end. It's not that all men are dangerous. It's that most women have no way of knowing which ones are. And because of that, they learn to treat every unsolicited approach with caution, with fear, with silence. That smile you offered, it might have come after she spent the last 10 minutes trying to avoid eye contact with someone following her. That compliment you thought was tasteful, it might have echoed something said by a man who once grabbed her arm in the same coffee shop. Let's make this clear. Women are not overreacting. They are adapting. They've learned that giving the benefit of the doubt is a luxury they can't afford. So they freeze. They nod politely, they laugh nervously, and the man walks away thinking it went well, that she smiled back, that she appreciated the attention. But what he saw was just a mask, a survival mask. One that says, "Please don't get angry. Please don't follow me. Please just let me leave without making a scene." This plays out everywhere. In the office, where a woman laughs at an uncomfortable joke just to keep the peace. At the gym, where she changes machines to avoid the guy who keeps accidentally making eye contact. At the cafe, where she pretends to be on a call just so she doesn't have to answer a stranger's question. And again, the man may never notice. He thinks she was shy, or flattered, or just busy. The truth is, she was managing the situation, calculating every move, not because she's cold, but because her safety depends on it. This is not about making men feel guilty for existing. It's about asking men to become more aware, because the reality is, most men never have to think about how they're perceived when they walk down the street. They don't worry about the route they take home. They don't hold their keys like a weapon. They don't have to fake phone calls to avoid someone. Women do. And yet, because these fears are often silent, invisible to the outside, men assume they don't exist. They mistake politeness for interest. They read fear as flirtation. That's the problem. We're not just talking about awareness of behavior, we're talking about emotional awareness, the ability to see beyond your own intent and understand someone else's reality. The truth is, most men are not malicious, but many are unaware. And in that gap of awareness, harm still happens. Imagine entering a space and not noticing that everyone flinches when you speak. Imagine being so used to your own volume that you don't realize others hear it as shouting. That's what it's like. Men move through the world at a frequency that feels normal to them, but often comes off as overwhelming to someone else. So how do we bridge this gap? The first step is accepting that your perception is not the only one, that what you think is respectful might be intrusive, that what you meant as confidence might register as pressure, that what you considered a compliment might feel like control. This requires something rare: the willingness to question yourself, to pause before acting, to notice how people respond without assuming it confirms your assumptions. Because that moment of doubt, that tiny gap of humility, might be the difference between making someone feel safe or making them feel trapped. And this leads us to a deeper truth. If our perception can be this far off, what else might we be misreading? What else might we be convinced we're good at, while doing more harm than we know? That question takes us somewhere even more important, into the heart of the psychological illusion that clouds so many of our interactions. Let's go there next. You think you understand, but you're living in a delusion. There's something quietly dangerous about confidence, not the calm, grounded kind, but the loud, overreaching kind, the type of confidence that says, I get it, I've got this, I know what I'm doing, especially when it comes to people, especially when it comes to women. This is where we meet one of the most deceptive psychological traps of all overconfidence bias. It's the tendency to overestimate your own ability to understand or predict others. And men fall into it all the time. It looks like this. A guy flirts with a woman. She smiles politely, and he walks away convinced she's into him. He remembers that one time he cracked a joke and got a laugh. That one girl who gave him her number. That one compliment that landed. He holds on to these moments like medals. Proof that he knows how to connect. But here's the catch. He forgets the dozen other times he got a cold response. He forgets the body language that screamed discomfort. He forgets the forced laugh, the silence. The way she shifted her weight or scanned the room looking for someone else. He edits those out. Not on purpose, just conveniently. Because overconfidence isn't fueled by data, it's fueled by selective memory. By cherry-picking the evidence that flatters your ego and ignoring everything that threatens it. That's why the most confident men are often the most blind. They live in a story where they always know what they're doing. And when something doesn't go well, they blame the woman. She was cold. She was rude. She must be broken. They never stop to ask, maybe I missed something. Maybe I misread the entire moment. Here's the twist that stings. You don't understand because you only hear the applause. You don't hear the silence. And silence is often the loudest response you'll ever get. The way she looks down, the way she gives one-word answers, the way her laugh fades too quickly. These are not accidental. They are signals. And if you don't see them, it's not because they're not there. It's because you're not looking. Overconfidence makes you think you're good at reading people, when in reality, you're just good at reading comfort zones that mirror your own. But connection isn't built on assumptions, so it's built on attentions, on sensitivity, on noticing what most people miss. So ask yourself, are you really tuned in? Or are you just playing out a script that once worked, hoping it will work again? This doesn't mean you should be insecure. It means you should be curious. It means you should be willing to admit that your view is partial, that you can't fully understand someone unless you're willing to step outside your own narrative and into theirs. Because to truly understand another person, especially someone whose life experience is different from yours, you need more than confidence. You need a whole different skill, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Want to understand women learn to look without judgment. If there's one ability that separates those who truly understand people from those who think they do, it's called theory of mind. It's not philosophy, it's psychology. And it refers to something deceptively simple, the ability to recognize that other people have thoughts, feelings, desires, and fears that are different from your own. It's what allows you to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Not just imagine how you would feel in their place, but how they feel in their reality. Sounds basic, but most people never develop this deeply, especially when it comes to relationships. Especially when it comes to men trying to understand women. Because here's the truth. Most men are not observing when they're projecting. They're not seeing who she really is when they're seeing what they want her to be. Or worse, what they've been taught she's supposed to be. Men often see women through one of two lenses. Either the lens of desire or the lens of conquest. She's either someone to want or someone to win, someone to impress, someone to charm. And in both cases, the man is not really looking at her. He's looking at a character in his own story. So what gets missed? Everything. He doesn't notice the slight pause before she answers. He doesn't sense the tension behind her smile. He doesn't realize that her laugh came 1 second too late, and that it didn't reach her eyes. He misses all of it because he's not paying attention to her. He's paying attention to how he's performing. Let's take the classic first date. A man sits down thinking, I hope she likes me. I hope I say the right thing. I hope she laughs. But here's what he doesn't know. She's already reading him. She's watching how he treats the waiter, how often he interrupts, whether he asks real questions or just waits for his turn to speak. She's not evaluating his script. She's observing his pattern. And here's the twist. True attraction is born from quiet observation, not loud presentation. It's in the stillness. The way you hold eye contact without trying to dominate. The way you stay present when the topic shifts to something emotional. The way you listen not just for words but for tone, pauses, and what isn't being said. Most men think connection comes from impressing, but it doesn't. It comes from attunement, from picking up on emotional cues and responding with presence, not performance. But this requires a skill that's increasingly rare, non-judgmental attention. To look without trying to label, to listen without rushing to fix, to see her not as a mirror for your self-worth, but as a human being with her own interior world. It's harder than it sounds, because judgment is automatic. We judge what we don't understand. We judge what makes us uncomfortable. And most men, whether they know it or not, are uncomfortable with emotional complexity, especially when it comes from a woman. So they reduce, they categorize, they slap labels like crazy, cold, emotional, or too much. Not because she is any of those things, but because they never took the time to see what's actually there. To understand a woman, you have to look longer than you're used to. You have to stay curious after the first impression fades. You have to keep watching after the part where you usually decide what you think she is. And most importantly, you have to notice how she responds to you, not just what she says, but how she says it. The speed, the silence, the shifts. These are her truth, and they're only visible to the eyes that know how to see. But here's a question. What if you've been paying attention? What if you've been observing? And yet, your efforts still fall flat. Maybe it's not about how you see her. Maybe the problem is how you've been taught to approach her. Maybe the strategy itself is broken. Let's look at that next. When ego clouds the heart, men choose the wrong strategy. For generations, men have been taught a very narrow script. Be bold, be confident, be dominant, make the first move, don't take no for an answer, lead the interaction, take control. In short, play the alpha. This mindset is everywhere, from dating advice forums to locker room talk to the movies we grow up watching. It tells men that being assertive and unapologetically masculine is the key to attraction. That power is magnetic. That if you want to be wanted, you need to show you're in charge. But here's the part that never gets questioned. What if that script is all wrong? Let's be honest. Many men default to the alpha mode not because it works, but because it protects their ego. It's easier to perform dominance than to risk vulnerability. It's easier to talk over someone than to slow down and risk silence. It's easier to impress than to connect. But what they often miss is this: while they're performing to be noticed, they're also making it harder for women to feel safe. Because when you walk into a space trying to dominate, to own the moment, to prove your value, You might grab attention, but you rarely earn trust. And trust, not dominance, is what opens the door to real connection. Here's the twist that most men don't want to hear. Women are not drawn to loudness. They're drawn to presence. Not the kind of presence that fills a room with noise. The kind of presence that holds space with calm. The kind that listens, that pays attention, that moves slowly, intentionally, and that sees her not as a prize to be claimed, but as a human to be understood. Because while men are out here trying to be heard, women are just hoping to be felt. Imagine this. You're trying to win her attention by talking louder, standing taller, being funnier, flexing success, but she's silently wondering if you're even capable of listening. It's like yelling into someone's ear when all they really want is for you to hear their silence. This is why so many men struggle and don't understand why. They believe they did everything right. They followed the strategy. They showed confidence. They talked about their goals. They led the conversation, but she left the date feeling drained, not seen, impressed maybe, but not moved. Because what impresses doesn't always connect, and what connects is rarely about strategy. It's about sincerity. Let's get specific. What traits actually draw women in on a deeper level? Research across cultures consistently highlights a few things: kindness, intelligence, emotional stability, warmth, a sense of humor rooted in authenticity, not arrogance, strength that feels grounded, not forceful. These are not traits that demand the room. They don't dominate. They invite. They create emotional space. They say, "You're safe here. You're allowed to be yourself." And when a woman feels safe, when she feels seen, attraction grows, not like a firework, but like a slow-burning flame, steady, real. Now here's the twist you didn't expect. Winning her once doesn't matter if you can't hold her trust twice. You can be charming for a night, but can you be consistent for a month, a year? Can you be present when she's not in the mood to laugh? Can you handle her depth when it's no longer filtered through makeup and smiles? The truth is, most men never get to that part, because they lose her long before it gets real. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they were too busy trying to be impressive instead of being available. And that's the tragedy. Good men playing a bad game. So maybe it's time to stop performing and start perceiving. Stop chasing and start noticing, and stop trying to win her and start trying to understand her. And now, we shift from awareness to action. From realizing what doesn't work to practicing what does. Let's talk about how to actually build the kind of presence that makes her feel truly understood. Want to be understood? Learn to understand first. Every man wants to be understood, to be seen for who he really is, to be accepted without pretense. But here's the part most never consider. How can you expect to be understood if you haven't learned how to understand others first? Understanding is not a passive quality. It's not something you stumble into with age or luck. It's a skill, a discipline. And like any discipline, it demands attention, effort, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. So where do you begin with the hardest person to observe yourself? The first step to understanding others is developing self-awareness. That means looking inward with honesty, not judgment. Start with this: keep an emotional journal. Not just a record of what happened each day, but how you felt. And more importantly, how you responded. Did you interrupt someone? Did you get defensive when a woman disagreed with you? Did you brush off someone's discomfort just to keep the mood light? Don't justify, just right. You'll be surprised how often your memory edits reality in your favor. But when it's written down, the pattern becomes hard to ignore. The second practice is even more humbling. Ask for feedback. Not vague compliments, real feedback. From a female friend, from someone you dated but things didn't work out. Ask them, how did you experience me? Were there moments you felt I didn't listen? Times you felt unseen and this part is crucial. Don't defend yourself, just listen. The goal is not to change their mind, it's to change your awareness. The third layer is learning to read the signals no one says out loud. Nonverbal cues. This is where real understanding lives. The way someone exhales when the topic shifts. The flicker in their eyes when they talk about family. The pause before they say, "I'm fine." These are not small details. These are the real conversations happening under the surface. Most men only listen with their ears. You have to learn to listen with your entire presence. That means slowing down. It means being okay with silence. It means not rushing to fix or offer advice the moment someone shares something vulnerable. It means creating space not just with your words, but with your energy. And here's the secret: when someone feels truly seen, they start showing you more. Not because you asked, but because your presence gave them permission to. Now let's talk about approach. Most men approach interactions like a mission, an objective to be completed. Impress her, make her laugh, get her number and win her over, but that mindset turns people into targets, and targets don't trust you. What if instead you approached every interaction with one quiet question in mind? What can I learn about this person? Not what can I get? Not how can I win, but who is this in front of me? And what's it like to be her? This shift alone will change everything. Because suddenly, you're no longer performing. You're discovering, you're present. You're not trying to create a reaction, you're responding to reality. And ironically, that's what builds true connection. Not charisma, not bravado, not charm, but presence. The kind of presence that makes someone feel, I don't have to hide who I am around this person, because when someone feels that from you, they begin to relax. And in that relaxation, something powerful happens. Attraction grows, trust deepens, emotional safety forms. But let's be clear. Understanding someone is not the final goal. It's the doorway. Because what you do with that understanding, how you hold it, how you respect it, how you stay with it, that's where character is revealed. And that brings us to the most important truth of all. Understanding without respect is manipulation. Understanding with respect is love. So let's take one final step. If you truly want to connect with women, not just win their attention, but earn their trust, then you need more than understanding. You need the attitude that gives it meaning. Let's go there next. You can't understand women if you don't learn to respect them. There's a final piece that holds all the others together. And without it, everything you've practiced, self-awareness, observation, listening, becomes a performance. That piece is respect. Not the surface-level respect that says please and thank you. Not the scripted kind that follows rules just to avoid being called out. Real respect, the kind that starts inside your own mindset. The kind that doesn't ask, what can I get from her, but what does she deserve from me? Because here's the truth most men overlook. Respect is not a technique, it's not a tactic, it's a posture, a way of being. You can't fake it, you can't rush it, and you definitely can't sprinkle it on top of a manipulative strategy and hope for trust. If your understanding of women is rooted in wanting to gain control, approval, or validation, you've missed the point entirely. Respect means you don't reduce her to a role. You don't treat her as a puzzle to solve or a reward to earn. You treat her as a human being whose experience is just as real, just as layered, just as important as yours. You don't have to agree with everything she says. You don't have to understand every emotion she feels. But you do have to honor the space she takes up in this world. And here's the twist that humbles us all. You will never fully understand women. And that's okay. You don't need to decode every thought. You don't need to master every nuance. What matters is that you keep showing up to listen, that you create space, not pressure, that your presence brings calm, not calculation. Because in the end, she's not looking for someone who always gets it right. She's looking for someone who doesn't turn away when it gets complicated, who stays, who listens, who learns. And the same goes for every human connection, whether romantic or not. We don't need perfect understanding. We need respectful attention, we need patience, and we need humility. So here's the truth I'll leave you with. To understand someone is to accept that you may never understand them completely, and to keep listening anyway, as if it were the first time, every time. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And that is where trust begins.